Okay, first step that I want to talk about in our linking for traffic series is Google Alerts. And this is a really important part of the process because um, as you get these things going, there's going to be more and more posts about you and about your site, linking to your site as well. And these are going to be natural posts that aren't created by this process that we've sort of engineered. These are going to be natural posts that just appear in the forum that you're targeting, and you can apply this same process to them as well. They can begin to be on your watch list of threads, and you can make sure that those stay on top in view of forum members as much as possible using this exact same process that we've outlined here of having aged accounts that bump posts and things like that. But the first step before you can find these posts and a real offhand, hands-off way that you can become aware of these posts is using Google Alerts. And if you know about Google Alerts, I want to encourage you to watch this whole video because I'm going to show you some specific tricks that you're going to need to know to make your Google Alerts a lot more effective. Now, the first thing that you want to do with Google Alerts is to experiment a little bit to find out the exact search engine query that you want to give the Google alert. So you're going to do some testing here just in the regular Google search engine to try to figure out what types of results are the are is the Google search engine giving for different types of queries. The first thing that you want to put in, and I'm actually using chess as an example because this is a niche that I used to have back in 2007. Um, First thing you want to do is you want to do site colon and then you want to put the domain name of the forum. That's the first step. And then you want to put your name. Okay, you're going to have to do several Google alerts, but the first alert that you're going to want to do is your name, or if it's a niche site that has a pseudonym attached to it, um, or a certain username perhaps that you've used a lot in that niche that could be mentioned, or maybe your product name. Whatever it is, you want to put that in here and see what kind of results it brings up. Now, I might do this just to broaden it. This is an example of the type of things I'll do to experiment. Just do my last name, which brings up a lot more results, but looks like it's a little bit too broad there. So we're going to go back to the previous one and Chad Kimball, and let's see if it makes a difference if I do it in quotes. 5 results. This is probably going to be the most targeted results, and I want to make sure that it's Chad Kimball with the first and last name, because if I do more than that, if I do less than that, it brings up way too many results. So then I'm going to bring up a text file that contains all of these queries, and I'm going to need to do a different Google alert for each one of these queries. Okay, so I want any result that Google indexes that has Chad Kimball in it. I also had a site back then that was called chessvictory.com. I also want any mention of chessvictory.com. You can see there's a lot more results there. Partly that's because I was doing a lot of activity on this site as well, but I want to make sure that any mentions of my site that are new show up as well. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to put that in my list. Okay, and then you might want to try some variations as well, because sometimes people mention you without your domain. Like, say they'll mention you like that, Chess Victory, like that. And so you want to take a look. Does that look like um, something that you would want? And actually, you could probably, I'm just taking a look now, we could probably narrow this down just to Chess Victory, and that will also include any mentions of chessvictory.com. So I'm going to edit that. And we're also going to try Chess Victory with a space between. Okay, we're going to do that one in quotes. Just to see, that would be more a brand, something where the brand is mentioned. And these are all going to be excuses for you to link to your site. Okay. So look, we do have a number of these, um, but as you scroll down, you can see some of these are not relevant to my site. Chess exclamation point dash victory. Um, that's not relevant. Chess dash victory. We got victory dance right here. Um, yeah, I'm going down and seeing. See, these results are not something that I want, so I'm not going to be using this for Google. This is going to bring up so many things that are unrelated to my site. Um, and then I also had a product called Grandmaster Strategy Training Library. So I want to see if that shows up anywhere, and that doesn't show up. Let's try Grandmaster Strategy. So here we go. This is my product, or actually my X product, Grandmaster Strategy Chess Videos for Sale. But if I keep going, yeah, those are the only mentions. These are actually all mentions of. Actually, there's quite a few here. Grandmaster Strategy Chess Videos, and most of them seem pretty focused on my actual product. So a few of them are irrelevant, but there's not enough. Now, if you say for instance, so this would probably be one that I would want to keep, because what you're going to do is any mention of your site that pops into these Google alerts, you're going to begin to apply this process to it. So say a Google alert sends you an email that says that a mention of Grandmaster Strategy Training Library has shown up in the chess.com forum. What that's going to allow you to do now, if it's a link to your site, that's awesome, because then you don't have to actually post a link to your site. All you have to do is make sure that thread keeps getting bumped and stays on top of the list of threads. If it is not a if there's no link, then you're going to have to respond, and you can actually usually respond down here with what I call the main account, which is the account officially associated with you and your brand or your product, and just say, hey, thanks for the mention. If anyone wants more information, here's a link to our site, or whatever. You need to obey the rules of the forum itself, but it's a great way to find an excuse. Or for more information, he didn't really say where he found this, but here's where you can find more about this. Or if the rules say that you can't post links like that, promotional links, then you would want to use an aged account right here to say, here's more information about this Grandmaster Strategy Training Library. I've enjoyed it a lot myself. Link, and since it's an aged account, and it's a third-party account, you won't get in trouble for that. So you're going to have to be a little bit flexible with the strategy of how you respond to these Google alerts, but that's an example of how they work. Now, if you did a Google search for this and you found that there were a lot of references to this Amazon, to this specific Amazon link, then you would know, probably if you did a Google alert just for this phrase, it's probably going to bring up a lot of extra stuff. And so a way that you can get rid of these types of things is you can actually do a negative, add a negative. So you're going to put minus and then in quotes Amazon.com, and that means anytime that Amazon.com is part of the result, like this one here, it's going to be excluded. So watch, we'll see how see. Let's go and I'll show you. So you can see down here there used to be Amazon.com results, but now they are not there anymore. And so that's a way you can begin to refine it. So say there's a lot of times you'll find, if you use your username, that you'll find that there's a lot of little posts that are like some little text snippets that clutter up your results a lot. For instance, this is just an example from the Digital Point forum. You can see down here at the bottom of every single thread, they've got this little box that says similar threads, and you're going to find that they link to, say you have 5 threads that are made by your username R2R, for example. Well, R2R, this phrase right here, by R2R, is going to show up in those Google alerts as a mention of your username. But you can see it's really not that useful of a mention, because this is just a link in the similar threads box. It's not actually a mention of that somebody else made of your brand or of your product. And so I would make this a negative right here in quotes, like I did out of Amazon. I would make this a negative as well, by R2R, just to try to make sure. Because say if I forgot to make that a negative in my search query, there might be 100 pages on this forum that have this by R2R text on them just because it shows up in the similar threads box. But those aren't necessarily threads that I need to go and check on. They're not real mentions of my username. They're not real mentions of me. This is just an automated little box that's generated by the Digital Point software forum software. So that would be something I'd want to exclude from my search using some of these negative qualifiers right here. And anytime you put a minus, you can put a minus or a dash there in front of something in quotes or a single word. You can even do minus site like that, and that'll exclude any results that are from a certain domain name. There's a lot you can do with negatives to help to focus that that search query a little bit, so that you're not getting tons of emails from stuff that's irrelevant to what you actually want to be monitoring. So, and then after that, we've got a good result. You might have more than this if you have several products. Maybe if you have 5 or 6 products, you want to make sure that you do searches for all these products, and the target, all these alerts are just from one forum. Okay, so that's why everything is site colon domain.com, and that way you're only getting alerted of new mentions of your name on this specific site, or mentions of your product or your brand. And then what you do is you just go to Google Alerts, okay, and you copy and paste. Once you've worked out these search queries that they're bringing you the kind of results that you want, you copy and paste each query into the box individually. Okay, you just paste it in like that. And then you can tell it what kind of results you want. I would just tell it to bring everything, because you also do want to know if you're mentioned in video or discussions or books or anything. So I would just leave it on everything. How often, and this really depends on your flow, and it depends on who else you have doing it. I would suggest you do no less than once a day. Just because if you do once a week, it's going to be a little bit too slow. You want to jump on top of these forum mentions, especially because it's a thread that has some lifespan to it. So you want to make sure you're doing once a day. If you have somebody who's just standing on call doing this all day long, like an outsourcer, then you could do as it happens, and they'll email to you in real time. But whatever you decide, you can do that. This will and then I would choose all results, not just the best results, because I wouldn't want Google to eliminate anything just because they didn't think that it was good results. And then down here, you just type in your email and you click create alert, and that's all there is to it. And you want to do that one by one for each one of these queries individually, so that you end up getting an email for each separate query, and that's going to notify you whenever there's a mention on that specific site. And then you also need to do that for each site that you're targeting using this strategy. Powerful technique. And then after that, it's just hands off. And you might get an email every day. You might only get an email every so often, but it gives you an opportunity and an excuse to go into those forums and to bump those threads. Either you can do it using your main branded account, like I talked about down here, or you can use a third-party aged account. Just make sure that you hide your IP address, and we're going to talk about that in some other videos, so that they don't associate it with you with your other accounts. And then it's a great way to have. So we've gotten some great traffic from these types of third-party mentions, and then we've really milked those posts, and we've had numbers of different accounts all posting questions and then answering those questions, or posting questions for us to answer using our main branded account down here, and then we can just log in with that main account and answer the question. But it's all done in a third party thread that was created by someone else, and it's a really powerful way to get traffic from these forums. Okay, so in other videos, we're going to talk about specifically the strategy of generating your own account, your own threads. Now, this is specifically just so that you're aware of any third-party threads that exist out there. You can also do old threads using this same technique, but in this technique, you're just going to do a search directly in Google for these things, and you're going to go and see, is there any way you can jump in on a conversation that maybe perhaps is older. Now you want to make sure that you know the rules of that specific forum. For instance, the chess.com forum, I would want to know, is it okay for me to bump an old thread? But if they are okay with it, then you can actually go in and find an old thread, and you can bump it similar using those exact same search queries. And then it's a great way to get traffic. So, but we're going to talk in other videos about generating your own third-party posts, using aged accounts that are actually promoting your stuff, or accounts that are more newbie type accounts that are simply asking questions that then you can jump in and answer, either with an aged account or with your main branded account. And we're going to get into all those details in other videos. But for now, I want you to get out there and set up your Google Alerts. Worst case scenario, you should set up these Google Alerts, even if you're not going to use this whole strategy of multiple accounts, because that'll at least let you know when you're being mentioned, and you can jump in there and start to get some traffic, even just from threads that pop up in the Google Alerts.